right, take one of the open audition for Peter Apple and Arm Layton's spot on the Just Baseball show. This is Ryan Finkelstein. It is Wednesday, April 20th, 5:16. Rolling. Just Baseball show. It's Thursday, April 21st, Jack. And Ryan Finkelstein, we're going to be talking a lot of Mets. We're going to be talking a lot of other stuff. Do you feel like you can unseat Peter and or Aram? If so, who?
Oh, man. I mean, I think it's tough because both of them have a million shows. They might be happy if I unseated one of them, to be honest with you. But, I think right now, considering New York is becoming a Mets town, it would just be fitting that I would take Peter's spot. And we kind of stopped talking about the Yankees a little bit,
Yeah. Well, you're also one of the hosts of the State of the Division NL East segment. And
right.
You know that the Marlins are not really anything of note. So I feel like you can dwarf both of them.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And if the Mets continue to play this way, my own personal hype train just continues to grow as well. You should see what we're doing with Locked On Mets recently. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be a really good year. I'm feeling good about it.
Ryan is the host of Locked On Mets. He's also a kick-ass editor for Just Baseball, does a ton of good stuff. And you are now, fully recurring of a guest. Is this your fourth appearance on the JB show?
I think so. I think it is. Number 4.
That. All right. Here's to many more. Here's to 5 episodes a week. We're going to talk a lot of Mets because the Mets are one of the stories in Major League Baseball right now. Also, Owen Miller sitting 500. So that's that. But, right before we started recording, we started talking about Francisco Lindor. And Lindor is having a bounce back year. Pete Alonso is one of the best run producers in Major League Baseball right now. And I said, it felt like the one team in Major League Baseball that can't outspend bad luck is the New York Mets. And here they are outspending bad luck. Steve Cohen, is he your knight in shining armor?
You have no idea. My show the first 2 years was basically just me ripping Jeff Wilpon over and over and over again. And there was a segment of Mets fans that enjoyed that. But there's a much larger segment of Mets fans now where there's a $300 million payroll that allows you to go from a team that collapsed last year, had all these bad vibes, to a team that is just absolutely rolling in that. I mean, to come into this episode today off of a sweep of the Giants of all teams in a doubleheader, Cloud 9 is an understatement.
Where did the bad vibes go? Because it's not like there was a ton of roster turnover. If anything, like additions came in, people didn't necessarily depart.
Well, I think that there was very specific players that were moved on from. And I don't know if it really means anything, but there are players that are pretty loud on social media, and Marcus Stroman and Noah Syndergaard. A little bit interesting that those two guys left. I mean, obviously Syndergaard wasn't a big part of the team last year, but I think that the Mets were very particular in who they signed. Max Scherzer, Eduardo Escobar, Starling Marte, Mark Canha. Veterans that are just about winning, it seems like. And I think that has really got this team in the right direction. And then Buck Showalter, if there's one manager out there that can manage all these egos, it's Buck.
Okay, so Buck, he stole my heart during spring training when he was talking about near the complex in Port St. Lucie, one of the like a drink bucket, you know what I'm talking about? The bucket.
Yeah.
He stole my heart for that. And this guy is a former MLB Network analyst. We know he's good with the media, but it feels like the front that he's putting on for the media is not necessarily a front. And it really feels like he is a player's manager that just happens to be sensational with everybody and just like the genuine top dog among managerial people in baseball.
He just walks into a press conference and he just tells the media, man, it was cold out there. Was it cold where you guys were sitting? It's just little stuff like that where he's just genuinely himself. And he's been doing this job for so long that nothing's going to faze him. And he makes everyone comfortable. And I mean, he has the media eating out of the palm of his hand. I mean, they love him. So he's not going to get criticized by the media either, which is good for the team. It's less of a distraction.
Tony La Russa is not showing anybody a photo of his puppy. I promise you he's not showing anybody a photo.
No, he's not.
I want to walk through a lot of these individuals here because Frankie Lindor is obviously taking the league by storm right now, and Pete Alonso has been great. Let's start with Lindor because this is a guy that was so underwhelming, and I think people were already chalking up that $341 million deal as just an ass move, getting $1 million more than Fernando Tatis Jr. And drastically underperforming in 2021. What's clicking for him right now?
Well, first off, I just want to go through his numbers real quick through 12 games. First of all, he's gotten on base in every game. He's hitting 310, 442 on base, 619 slugging, 208 WRC plus, trailing only Wander Franco. He is leading shortstops in ISO, walk percentage, F/WAR, home runs, RBIs, and stolen bases, and he's top 3 in on base percentage, slugging percentage, and WRC plus. So you can't have there's no way you could have started the season better. But if you've been reading me at Just Baseball or listening to me, I have been saying this for a long time. I think my first appearance on the Just Baseball show, you guys were saying, what's wrong with Lindor? And I said, well, you look at his first 2 months last year, he was terrible. I think he hit 188, 219 on base, 285 slugging, 67 WRC plus, and 45 games played. From that point on, Lindor was pretty solid last year. He hit 252, 340 on base, 482 slugging, 16 home runs, 51 runs scored, 52 RBIs. You take that and you put it over a full season, he would have had his 30 home runs. He would have been right in line with his career numbers. I think a lot of it was overblown last year. And you look at the guy that's the best defensive shortstop in baseball. I think he's given you everything you expected when he signed that contract. It was just the season last year where that slow start really kind of changed the perception of him.
So you texted Arm and I on Tuesday morning. You said, I'm going to write up an article. Francisco Lindor is playing like the best shortstop in baseball. And I said, yeah, sure. Keep pushing the agenda, man. And you make your good case. It's live on justbaseball.com. Check it out. Ryan Finkelstein wrote it, published on April 19th. The title of the article is literally Francisco Lindor is playing like the best shortstop in baseball. We knew that he could do his damage defensively. We knew that he was, the gold standard defensively there when he was in Cleveland. What we also saw in Cleveland was a very high batting average, and by very high, I'm not talking like 310, 320. I'm talking for his power output, 280 with 30 bombs was insane. A realistic expectation for 2022. Is it 280 with 30 bombs?
I think it could be, but to me, it's more the on-base percentage. And since June 1st of last year, he's leading all shortstops in walk percentage. I think it's over 12%. So he's having good at-bats. And the way I look at Lindor over the length of this contract, if he's giving you Gold Glove defense, 30 bombs, and he's getting on base, there's really nothing else you could ask for. I don't think he's going to be the best shortstop in baseball. Like I said, he's playing like it, but I think he's a top 10 shortstop. And as long as he is giving you these productive at bats and he's running into his home runs, you're going to take it. And one of the other things that I have in the article is since June 1st, no one's hit more home runs at short than Fernando Tatis Jr. And again, you look at the career sample size since he debuted. I like to tell people Lindor leading all shortstops in F/WAR and home runs hit. That's who he is. And that's who he's been this season.
I'm trying to walk through the division in my head, and I'm thinking about the shortstops in the division. And Francisco Lindor is for sure the best shortstop in the NL East, right? Because you're working against Dansby Swanson in Atlanta, you're working against Alcides Escobar in Washington, Miguel Rojas in Miami, and then Bryson Stott / Didi Gregorius in Philly.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. It's a no-brainer there who the best shortstop in the NL East is. I go to the NL Central now, and I see an identity crisis between DeYoung and Sosa in St. Louis. In Milwaukee, it's Willy Adames. In Chicago, it's Andrelton Simmons / Nico Horner. In Pittsburgh, it doesn't really matter. It's Kevin Newman right now. It'll be O'Neal Cruz in due time. And then Cincinnati, Barrero / Farmer. You have to look all the way to the West Coast to find Trey Turner and Fernando Tatis Jr., who are the better shortstops in the National League than Francisco Lindor. But I think the list stops there.
Yeah, and those might be the best two shortstops in baseball, in Turner and Tatis. So, yeah, I think, again, this is a guy that had such a slow start that people, were writing him off. And I mentioned a lot that Carlos Beltran's first year with the Mets in 2005 was very similar to Lindor's. Bad start, booed in the beginning, can't handle New York, big contract, all the noise. These guys, they're not robots. It takes a while to adjust from a Cleveland market to a New York market. And I think now that he's been here for a year, he's comfortable, and we're seeing him just play baseball like he has throughout his entire career.
You got anything more you want to say about Cleveland as a place?
No, I think I'm good.
You're good. All right. It's just a different market than New York, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, in Cleveland, this guy could have hit 188 for a full season and he wouldn't have gotten booed because they were just happy he was there. So that's the difference.
Well, now they have Owen Miller at second base.
That's true.
So there we go. Hitting 500, Owen Miller. Pete Alonso, 3 bombs. He and Lindor have a share of the team high, but Pete Alonso is one of Major League Baseball's top run producers at this point, only behind the legend C.J. Cron, and then I think one more guy. But Pete Alonso's got 14 ribbies. His production was really good last year, yet it felt like this down-to-earth season for Pete Alonso because he hit, 50 plus his rookie year. Alonso, he's going to bounce back in a massive way, isn't he?
I think so. I mean, he was another guy that got off to a slow start. I mean, particularly hitting home runs. So you look at him this year, and the thing I talk about Pete, I don't know if he'll lead the league in home runs, but I feel if Corona, like if he can slow down a little bit, I think Pete's got a good chance to lead the National League in RBIs because Starling Marte in front of him, that just adds so many opportunities with runners in scoring position. He had one game in the home opener where his first 2 at bats, he got sac flies. And so that's something that just wasn't happening last year because the team around him was so terrible. So I think Pete, as a traditional cleanup hitter on this team, is just going to rack up the RBIs. And he's going to have one of those months, I'm sure, coming up soon where he's going to be homering, almost every game.
Well, Marte's stealing some of the RBIs right now. Marte's got 10. Marte, I thought he was going to draw. I thought he was going to fall off a cliff. Like, being totally honest, his game is speed. He's getting older. I thought the speed was gone. He's doing the other 4 things really well, and he's still got the speed. You look at the signings. You mentioned him off the top. Scherzer, Canna, Marte, Eduardo Escobar. Is Marte the best one so far? Granted, I know Max Scherzer is Max Scherzer.
Yeah, I mean, Marte, I was hyping him up on Just Baseball with a bunch of articles before they signed him. I was like, is he the next Curtis Granderson signing for this Mets team? He should be their top priority, and we're seeing it. I think that in right field, you're going to see a player that can contend for a Gold Glove. I think in center, I don't think he's a Gold Glover, but in right field, his arm's going to play up. I think that was the right move to play him out there. And the athleticism just pops. Like, the Mets haven't had a guy this athletic that can make things happen since Jose Reyes. In the first inning of, I think it was the first game of the doubleheader yesterday, blue pit, steals second, bad throw, gets the third, a little pass ball that gets, 10 feet away from the catcher. You got 1 run in the first inning without having to really do anything. So that's what Marte brings to this team, and it's a different dynamic. I think Escobar and Canna are just quality veterans, and obviously Scherzer, but I think Starling Marte might have the biggest impact this season.
And Escobar, by the way, has a 940 OPS, so he's no slouch right now either. I do want to talk about that doubleheader because we're recording on Wednesday before Rodon and Bassett. Yeah, before Rodon and Bassett meet up in Queens. The appetizer was the day game. Mets took that on a walk-off in the 10th. Then the nightcap, that was the main event. That was the event that everybody circled. And after that game ended, then it was Buehler and Fried in LA, but that was Scherzer and Logan Webb. And the Mets got to Logan Webb. It's really hard to get to Logan Webb. He hadn't lost a game, I want to say, in a year in North.
I think they said it was 24 straight games that he hadn't recorded a loss. Right? I think the Giants had won all those games or something crazy.
So that shows you that it is nearly impossible to get to him, and you guys got to him early. How did the Mets get to Logan Webb?
Well, first of all, I mean, they got him out of the game in 4 innings. I mean, I was actually surprised that they did pull him when they did, but he was already at 80 pitches, and I think they just decided it wasn't worth, keeping him out there. It was just good at bats, top to bottom, and then Lindor was the one that got a rally going, hitting a double, and these guys just continue to come up with these clutch hits. I think what we're seeing with this Mets team is you have a lot of guys that are grinders up there with Jeff McNeil in the lineup when you have Eduardo Escobar, and even Mark Canna early on in the year before he tested positive for COVID and has been out. It's just a lot of guys that get on base and they work deep counts, and they can really, if you make a mistake, they'll make you pay for it. They haven't even really got it going as far as hitting home runs yet. It's a lot of passing the baton to the next guy. And, I mean, the way they're hitting with runners in scoring position too has been really impressive.
I totally forgot on Marte when we were on him. I was going to ask you what jersey size you think he has. Is it an adult small or a youth large?
It's got to be adult small, dude. When I went to spring training, I'm looking at everyone's jersey and I'm like, why does the biceps look different on him than everyone else, other than him having ridiculous biceps? Right. But like, it was like if he just flexed on a swing, that they would snap off.
Right. Seeing that jersey, it looks like it's painted on him at
Yeah.
times. Just it's so form fitting. I didn't know that baseball jerseys were ever made to do that.
I don't think they're supposed to be, but for Starling Marte, I think he has an extra request there. Make sure everyone knows who's the most athletic person on the field right now. Who's the most jacked?
Would Chris Bassett look like that if he had a form fitting jersey?
I don't think so. I don't think he'd look quite like that. No.
Now, the former Akron Zip. Chris Bassett is rocking a .75 ERA right now through his first couple of starts. Again, he gets the ball tonight. We'll see how that goes. But Bassett, Tyler McGill, and Carlos Carrasco. Everybody was saying, oh my God, DeGrom and Scherzer at the top is like having two Bob Gibsons. They're both Hall of Famers. There we go. DeGrom goes down. Okay, yeah, you still got Scherzer at the top. But the trio of Bassett, Carrasco, and McGill, I don't think the majority of the baseball world really understands how big that is for the Mets to have that trio going like they're going right away.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think the only one people were expecting was Bassett. Now, not to pitch to whatever you said, 0.78 ERA, but Bassett was great with the Athletics, and I think everyone sort of penciled him in as the number 2 when DeGrom went out. But for me, it's Carlos Carrasco that has really been the best revelation. And maybe it's because I like being right, and I had been spending the whole offseason talking about this guy. But here's a stat that I didn't mention on the State of the Division show, but if you go from 2014 through 2020 and you look at the xFIP leaders for a minimum of 500 innings pitched, Carlos Carrasco had the 4th best xFIP of any starter in baseball, better than Max Scherzer, actually. It's Clayton Kershaw at 2.67, Chris Sale 2.84, Jacob deGrom at 2.91, and Carlos Carrasco at 3.05. I think everyone forgot how good this guy is when he's on, and his down season last year, he blows out his hamstring, gets rushed back. They're rehabbing him at the big league level. And then in the offseason, he gets surgery to clean up his elbow. So now that he's healthy, and this isn't a guy that needs velocity, you're seeing that he can still be the same guy he was in Cleveland. So when you have Bassett and Carrasco behind Scherzer in this rotation, even if they don't have DeGrom, it's one of the best 1 through 3s. And then McGill, like you mentioned, he has just been sensational early on. He came in throwing harder. He's 6'7". Last year, a big jump from him in innings. He went from, I think the most ever was 35 2/3 in any season in the minors. He throws 130 last year. I think that's why he really wore down as the season went on, but he's a pitcher that has a high ceiling. And one of these guys that sort of popped because he didn't have that year in 2020. You didn't know what was going on with him. And then he just burst onto the scene. And look, 1 through 6 with Taijuan Walker as well. Yeah. This is a really good Mets rotation.
I just saw Tyler McGill's brother, Trevor McGill, in St. Paul last week. It was like 20 degrees with the wind chill, and McGill was out there just rocking no undershirt with the jersey, and he was pumping 98 in there. Tyler, kind of same deal there. And just walking through those 3 again. McGill's a big guy that throws 100. I understand why he's succeeding right now. Bassett, you saw it in Oakland. He has the deception there. I understand why he's succeeding right now. You've got the track record with Carrasco in Cleveland. But when you watch Carlos Carrasco pitch, why do you think he's succeeding the way he is right now?
Well, one thing is that, he wasn't even throwing his curveball much, we learned over the last couple of years, and that's because of whatever was going on with his elbow. So I think it really is that. It's that surgery he had to clean up whatever was going on in that elbow. That's allowed him to really have his full arsenal again. And I also think that Jeremy Hefner is one of the best pitching coaches in baseball, which I don't know if a lot of people would know if you're not paying attention to the team every day, but he's really good at creating an individualized plan for each pitcher. And so when you have these guys like Bassett and Carrasco that have such a big bag of weapons, they're able to really form a good game plan and they're executing it. And that's why you're seeing such great success right now.
Yeah. If you take the escalator of deep cuts in terms of being a baseball fan to baseball follower to baseball degenerate, it's knowing who the manager is, knowing who the general manager is, and then full blown degenerate is knowing who the pitching coach is.
You want me to take it a step further? I remember I was at a game with one of my buddies, the Mets Marlins game years ago. And he was just marveling how I knew everyone. I knew the bullpen catcher. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's Ray Ramirez. That's the trainer. He looks, he was like, why the fuck do you know who the trainer is? I'm like, dude, this is my life. I don't know what to tell you. I've been a Mets fan since I was a kid and I pay attention to all of it.
So when did you get weird like that? And I ask you because I was weird when I was 5 years old, I think, and I'm a White Sox fan now, but I grew up a Cubs fan. I grew up a 10-minute walk from Wrigley. I was their age, birth through 5. So my first games, all the photos of me as a young kid at a baseball game are at Wrigley. And when I was like 5 years old, my dad's party trick would be get me to rattle off the entire Cubs 25-man roster and like the coaching staff through the bench coach. And I was like, okay, I understand that I'm kind of a zoo animal for my dad right now, but that's also what I like to do. And that's when it kind of clicked for me that baseball was my jam. When did it click for you?
Same thing. I mean, just as a kid, whether it was, baseball cards, playing, 2K or what was the MVP baseball?
Baseball.
That was the classic on GameCube. So yeah, it's been like that for a long time. And I actually just recently had one of my friends from middle school, hadn't talked to since then, had just stumbled upon my podcast, and he DMs me just to say what's up. And he was just saying like, I'm not surprised at all this is what you were doing. Like, you were such a Mets nut in middle school. You knew everything. So I'm not surprised at all this is what you decided to end up doing with your career.
Yeah, that's the thing about sports. That's the thing about sports media in general, right? Like you get a head start when you're 5 years old. That's how you get rolling. You got to start like, okay, were you a diehard baseball fan out of the womb? Let's go. Entry level job.
100%. 100%.
Do you think the Mets are the second best team in the National League? Like, I was trying to think of a non-direct way of asking that question, but I'm struggling to think of a better team right now. Obviously, Atlanta just won the World Series, but just looking on paper, looking at what's to come throughout the entirety of the year, it's hard for me to pick a team after the Dodgers that is better and more set up for success than the New York Mets.
I think so. I mean, the Dodgers, we all know that they're the best team in baseball. They've been the best team in baseball. There's no really argument there, but you look at, and again, I have to come back to the rotation. The fact that they're doing what they're doing, and there's that guy, Jacob deGrom, that still hasn't pitched yet.
Yeah.
This team can just get so scary. And I imagine when they get to the playoffs, I've been thinking about it. If you go into a series with deGrom and Scherzer, those guys both hit the ball twice in a 7-game series.
Right.
You have Bassett and Carrasco, and then you have a guy like McGill whose stuff could play up in the bullpen.
Swingman.
Yeah. I mean, they just, that the way that rotation looks, and then the fact that 1 through 4, even if a Brandon Nimmo's out, I mean, if it's Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, whatever combination they put together, it seems like their 1 through 4 is going to be pretty lethal. They got a great rotation. They got a great starting lineup. I don't know what else you need.
And the beauty of the postseason too, say DeGrom comes back and he's feeling healthy. We've seen guys in recent years start 1, 4, and 7. So DeGrom, it could be start game 1, see how he feels for game 4. If he's not up for it, then McGill starts game 4, and then do it again. If he throws 1 and 4, see how he feels for 7. If he's like, I could give you some innings out of the bullpen, start McGill, see how long he goes. The depth there, the depth in the starting rotation is everything. And you see it in Miami. Obviously, Miami's not in the situation that the Mets are in, but you look at my White Sox, the depth is nowhere close to that.
Yeah.
So I'm terrified getting into a postseason series right now. But you look at Toronto and you've got Barrios and you've got Ryu and you've got Manoah and you've got Kikuchi. Okay, cool. But then you also have Gausman as well. So like Ryu could be that swingman and say Barrios isn't ready to go game 4. You could have Ryu start or something like that. How do you think the Mets line up as opposed to, let's expand it to the American League too, as opposed to any team in Major League Baseball in a 7-game playoff series?
I think that the Mets are good enough to compete with everyone. I'm not going to say they have a better lineup than the Blue Jays or the Dodgers. There's other teams out there that I think over a full season might prove to be a better offensive team. But again, what they've done is they've hit with runners in scoring position this year. And I think that because they have these veteran hitters, it's the little things I know, like talking small ball is like mentioning a pitching coach's name, like no one cares. But I mean, you're seeing Jeff McNeil in the extra innings move a guy over with a ground ball. It's little things that I really like to see. And it's just, there's not a lot of bad at-bats in this lineup. And what I really get excited about is I look at Francisco Alvarez in the minor leagues right now.
Dude.
And I see James McCann and Tomas Nido hit every day. And I just think that there's a chance that if this Mets team is rolling and you get to August and Alvarez has 30 home runs in the minors, they might just pull the trigger on that and rush him up a little bit early. And I mean, if you added Alvarez to the lineup, you also have Vientos and Beatty that could potentially take over as the DH or the third baseman. Like I see this team and I look at where they're at now, and I just think they're only going to get better. And also, they're a team that will be aggressive. We know they'll be aggressive at the deadline. So who knows what they'll even look like, come July.
You said the V word, Vientos, and he's a top 100 guy according to our Aram Layton. By the way, go check out Just Baseball's top 100 prospects. It's live on the site. You're looking at the tandem of the editors that went through Aram's incomplete sentences and made them complete sentences. So there we go. Vientos is a top 100 guy, but I was just messing around on Fangraphs yesterday morning, and I saw that Mark Vientos has the highest ground ball rate of any hitter in AAA baseball right now.
Shocking.
It is shocking because that's a guy that lifts it and could hit 40 bombs, but he is really struggling out of the gate right now with Syracuse. The reason I bring that up is because Indy's O'Neal Cruz is number 2. And I'm like, what are we doing here? You make your money lifting baseballs and you're putting it on the ground 64% of the time, but Vientos is putting it on the ground 70% of the time. With Alvarez, when do you think he becomes the best catching option?
I mean,
July,
the best offensive catching option. He's
right
already
now.
there right now. Yeah. So look, there's a chance that the Mets might just stay defense with their catcher. And I think they have that luxury. James McCann has been solid behind the plate. You're familiar with him a little bit from his days with the White Sox. And then Nito, and you were probably thinking, I can't believe the Mets just gave him a 4-year deal.
No, dude, he had like 330. He was an all-star, and I was like, oh, this guy's great. I wish we would have paid him.
Well, I think you ended up with a better option there with Grandal. But I think that Nito is a really good defensive catcher. So they might just stay with that. But if this team starts struggling at all offensively, the temptation is going to be there. I would still say only maybe like a 15% chance we see Alvarez this year. But coming into the year, Alvarez in camp says, I plan on making the big leagues this year. We all kind of laughed. Said, oh, how cool. It's good to see the kid's confident. I gave like a 1% chance of happening. And then he's making double-A pitching look like he made low-A pitching look like last year. And at a certain point, you just have to put your hands up and say, you know what, just let the kid go maybe.
As soon as Adley graduates, he's the top catching prospect of baseball by a very wide margin. And the thing about the Just Baseball top 100 in particular, Bobby Witt, Julio Rodriguez, Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green's not going to be down there for too long. Adley Rutschman, like there are not a lot of guys below AAA that are ahead of Francisco Alvarez. So even if he doesn't come up, there's a chance at the midseason point, we're looking at Francisco Alvarez as the top prospect in all of minor league baseball. And it's hard to keep the top prospect in minor league baseball down, especially if the Mets look to win and they feel like he's the best option. But you know what, that remains to be seen. And we'll check again at the All-Star break. We'll check again at the trade deadline and for September call-ups.
One other note, I also could see a scenario. Let's just say Vientos continues to struggle and Cano and Dom aren't hitting. You could also see the Mets just say, you know what, let's just have Alvarez DH. Don't worry about catching. And, we'll instruct you on catching a little bit, between games, but you're just going to be our universal DH every day. And that's another way they can get his bat into the lineup. So I think that even opens up the door and makes it even more of a likelihood that we could possibly see him this year.
I would say put your GM hat on, but I've never seen a GM wear a hat. So I'm going to ask you to put your GM tie on. Would you do that to Francisco Alvarez? Would you have him DH?
Again, it just comes down to if the DH spot looks the way it's looked so far this year, and it still looks like that, and then you get to the deadline and you're looking at the options on the market and you say, you know what, we just have this kid who's raking. I don't see any problem with it. I don't think that his bat's going to be hurt by getting thrown into the action. I think the only question is, what's he going to do defensively? So if you take that off the table, yeah, I'd consider it.
Yeah, I think I'm considering it too. You hear that at first and you're like, okay, I don't want to do anything to slow this guy's progression down. And then you hear it and it's like, wait, if I could win a World Series this year and I've got a guy that can hit me 10 bombs in a month and he's 22 years old, fuck it. Let's go.
I'm a South Florida kid. So actually one of my favorite baseball teams ever was the 2003 Marlins. Yeah. Because at the time I didn't realize they were in the same division as the Mets. And My dad took me I went to a game in each series. I was actually at the game where Pudge made that tag at the plate.
Whoa, that's awesome.
So, coolest moment I've ever been to live. But my point is, I watched Miguel Cabrera on that team, and you saw him not get phased by a Roger Clemens. And Alvarez, to me, is a teenage bat. I guess now he's 20, but like very similar. Where, yeah, I feel like if you have a chance to win a World Series and he's one of the best bats in your organization, you have to consider bringing him up.
Yeah. And if you want to tick more recently with that type of thing, different scale. Obviously, Miggy was like the top dog in terms of guys coming out that are really young and just contributing in the postseason right away. But you remember Xander Bogaerts in 2013?
Yeah.
He came up and just like he worked a 3-ball count every single plate appearance in that postseason. It's like, what is this 20-year-old doing putting quality at bats together?
I think another one is Schwarber too. Schwarber was another one.
Yeah, Schwarber in 2016. I feel like Alvarez is that type of guy where it's like, oh, this is a gamer. He's going to step up and go.
I mean, if we were really to be honest, and you were to look at the entire Mets organization right now, and you needed one guy to get a hit, like how many guys do you name on the Mets before you get to Alvarez?
Let's do it. Lindor, McNeil, Marte, a healthy Nimmo, Alonso, Canna.
Get on base, but get a hit. I don't know. I don't know. The list might stop at 5. I'm serious. That's. I feel like you put Alvarez in the game tomorrow, he goes 2 for 4.
Jeez,
he's just so good. I watch his at bats, and there's no holes in this guy's swing. He's just crazy.
I can tell you're a Mets guy.
Hey,
this is gonna sound philosophical as shit. You ready?
Yeah.
Who are you scared of, individually or team wise?
How could I not be scared of the Braves as a longtime Mets fan?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they've been in the division since 96, and I think they've won like 16 of the division titles. And like the next closest team might be the Phillies at 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
They own this division. So you're always scared of the Braves.
Yeah. Matt Olson too. Watching Olson from your experience watching Olson this year, is he starting to send shivers down your spine?
Yeah, that's the thing. Because I mean, how many open athletic games were most of us watching? I mean, you see the numbers like, oh, that guy's really good out there, but I never watched it. So now you're seeing it, and yeah, I mean, it's crazy that they lost Freeman and upgraded. It's crazy.
Are you worried, like in a 3-game set in like June, July, August, that the Marlins could just throw you out of whack if they've got Alcantara and Lopez and a Luzardo that's on, or one of these younger arms that's on, and all of a sudden you get swept by the Marlins and it's 2-1, 1-0, 3-2.
Yeah, I think on our first day of the division, me and Arm are going through it, and I feel like, is it weird to rank the Marlins ahead of the Phillies right now? But I trust pitching more than hitting. And there's so many holes in that team in Philly. So yeah, I think the Marlins, especially for a given series, when they could have 3 guys go out and just completely shut you out. Yeah, the Marlins pitching is pretty scary.
Are you a college basketball guy at all?
Not really.
Okay, so Virginia, their thing is defense. Tony Bennett, like it's the something called the trap defense. Why am I blanking? It's baseball season. That's why I'm blanking on this. But Tony Bennett, like the Virginia defense is top defense in the country year in, year out. And that's why when Virginia is good, everybody picks them to go far, because you think, oh, like defense never goes cold. A good shooting team can go cold one day. They're done in the tournament. Defense can't go cold. And that's how I feel about pitching. If you've got a strong pitching staff, because I watched the White Sox in 2005 ride a strong pitching staff and a mediocre at best offense to a World Series win, and one of the more dominating postseason appearances in recent memory. So like, I always side with pitching as well. Is there an offense that scares you at any point, not named the Dodgers?
Trying to think through it here. I mean, in the National League, honestly, the Giants, in that it doesn't even make sense to me what I was watching yesterday. I mean, these guys, they're hitting ground balls. They're finding every hole. They're working great at bats. Usually they're patient, but they just ambushed McGill. They completely changed up their game plan. Faranzati does wizardry over there. I don't know what's happening with them. So that's definitely a thing. And also, I just wanted to kind of expand on what you said a little bit there about defense in the Marlins. I feel like that's why the Marlins are just a center fielder away from actually being a really interesting wild card team. And if they would have just kept Starling Marte, now they wouldn't have had Jesus Luzardo, but even if they had just signed Marte instead of Avi Garcia and Soler this offseason, like I think we're looking at the Marlins differently, but it's because they have a questionable offense and a defense that I think it makes them a little bit short of a playoff team. But I think that's what I look at. When I look at the other teams though in the National League, yeah, it's the Dodgers, it's the Giants, and maybe it's CJ Cron's Rockies right now, I guess, with Connor Joe and Chris Bryant.
It's Connor Joe's Rockies. Right.
I'm sorry.
Come on, man. Yeah, CJ Cron may be the best player, but it's Connor Joe's Rockies. It's Dick Monfort's Rockies, actually.
Yeah. No one wants him to actually have a playoff team after everything this offseason, but they're how many times are the Rockies done? I feel like every year the Rockies do this. Are they like a good first month team and then they fall off?
I feel like, yes. I feel like the air is particularly thin in Denver in the month of April. So we got to get somebody. We got to get a meteorologist on the Just Baseball staff and have
Figure
them.
it out.
That would be massive for the not gambling advice that Pete does, I think.
Yeah.
just baseball meteorologist.
Yeah. Some real research in.
That'd be ridiculous. All right. Hey, Ryan, this was a blast. This was a lot more Mets than I think any Just Baseball show was going to do, but it's worth it because the Mets are on fire right now and you're the perfect guy to do it. And what else you got to plug? Plug Locked On Mets right now. Before you start plugging, though, I got to say you kick ass every single day on the editorial side for Just Baseball. So whenever you go read the quality content from the writing staff at justbaseball.com, just know that Ryan's got his King Midas magic fingers all over everything.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so you can find Locked On Mets over on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I go Monday through Friday. I have a new show every day. If you're a Mets fan driving to work, that's kind of the idea of our network. So I do that. Also, if there's a big one on a Friday night, sometimes I can't stay away. So you never know. You might get me on Saturdays too. And then on Just Baseball, we got the State of the Division podcast that we have me and Aram up today for the NL East side. Every day, check out the highlight reels that we're doing. Ethan has done a great job putting those out, and it's a nice little recap. If you didn't get to watch every game, you can just scroll through and see the highlights from our Twitter feed and kind of get a sense of what's going on in baseball. See a lot of CJ Cron home runs right now. And yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. So you got 3 podcasts out today, right now. You've got the Just Baseball show. You've got State of the Division. You got Locked On Mets. Are you going to go have a beer right now?
Yeah. I'm going to watch a Mets game. I'm going to watch the Mets try to win this series against the Giants. So a little beer for Bassett.
Beer for Bassett. I love it. Alliteration. That's perfect. Hey, me, Peter, and Aram are back with you tomorrow. We're just going to talk about the week that was, shoot the shit. Maybe some top 5 DH action coming as well. So we'll talk to you tomorrow, guys.